Star-Crossed. This novel by Minnie Darke is Reading with Robin Alert. Fun rom-com, exploding with all the things I love about a novel because it is smart and funny and it's entertaining and it's thought-provoking and just so many things about this book. And I will read the bio from your website because it's oh so clever. Minnie Darke is Gemini with Virgo rising, knitter, Scrabble cutthroat, lover of books, freshly sharpened pencils, and Russian caravan tea, wrote this book to amuse herself and to entertain you. She lives in Tasmania with her family, and we have been very, very diligent about getting this interview. And live from Australia, here you are. So welcome to Reading with Robin, Minnie Darke.
Thank you so much, Robin. Yes, it's taken us a little bit to get the time difference organized, hasn't it?
I was so confused, and you have the best team working for you, and those emails back and forth, I'm like, okay, so it's 5 p.m. here, it's 7, so you're just, 12 hours ahead, 16 hours?
I'm not sure exactly how many, someone can do the math for us, but it's about
14
just
hours?
after 7 o'clock it's just after 7 o'clock in the morning here, and it's coming up for winter, so very late autumn here, so I'm looking out my window, I can see beautiful pink clouds, dawn clouds.
Oh, how lovely. I think that is, I like that you're setting the mood for us. It is rainy, dreary Rhode Island. It's one of these springs where people will forget how sort of nasty it was because then it will just burst into a hot summer. That's my prediction. I had so many thoughts reading this book, but this is Minnie Darke's adult novel, U.S. debut, and so that's a big deal. And we were talking off air. You can talk about this book is being written under Minnie Darke and your real, your pseudonym and why that is. So we'll just get that out of the way. But for the purposes of the show, you're Minnie Darke.
Yes, Robin, I am. So I was born as Danielle Wood. So I grew up here in Australia, and I've written several books as Danielle Wood. So they're literary fiction. I've written a novel, short stories, long stories, a biography, and then I co-write with a friend of mine. She and I together are a children's author called Angelica Banks. Mm-hmm. And then a little while ago, I realized that I really wanted to write this joyful romantic comedy that I've had in the back of my head for about 2 decades.
Oh, wow.
And I realized that if I was going to do that, it didn't quite fit with all of my other work. And so I sat down at my desk and I just became Minnie Darke. It was as if she was the first character that I needed to invent in the star-crossed universe. So as you know, all the characters in the book are introduced with those pithy little introductions that start with a star sign and go on. So she was just the first one I invented.
I love that. Yeah, it's so clever the way we meet all of the characters and the way their paths cross. It's such a clever book, and it's the kind of book where the details, everything is meaningful. I just found myself laughing out loud, enjoying it. I could see it sort of, even the scene opens where our heroine is dashing through as her job as copy editor. The scene we begin with the birth of the 2 children who are destined to meet. Actually start there with how they're born and their signs and how the book is broken down into astrology, and I learned a little something because then I went up looking at my horoscope. I haven't looked at my horoscope in so many years. So
what star sign are you, Robin?
I was going to say I wondered if we talked long enough if you could figure it out, because I wondered how much you have in common with Minnie Darke, and I know my sign, but I don't know about what's rising, what's in, I don't know any of those things, and maybe explain a little bit about that, and then we can go back to how the story begins.
Okay, sure. So I grew up in a family where women bought magazines. So, mm-hmm. My grandmothers and my mother would always have had Australian Women's Weekly, Women's Day, New Idea. I subscribed to a magazine in my teens that was very cool. At that time it was Australian Dolly magazine. Mm-hmm. And all of them had astrology features, particularly in those January, your year ahead in the stars kind of editions. So kind of without meaning to, as a child, I got quite a background in astrology. And then when I was working as a young journalist at a suburban paper, I had a login that gave me access to the entire publication, and I was working late one night and realised I had access to the horoscopes, and I thought,
wow,
I could change them. I could go in there and tinker with them.
What a premise. So you're like little, I could do this.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so I'm not saying I definitely ever did do it. I thought about it, though, and
Sure.
I realised it would be a great premise for a novel, because if you were trying to affect one person's life, you might inadvertently affect many people's lives. So I kept that idea in my head for quite a while. And as far as astrology goes, if you don't know a thing about astrology, you don't even particularly like astrology, it won't really matter, because you'll have that in common with the main character, Justine. She's a complete skeptic.
She is.
So really what matters more is that you're prepared to kind of go on this journey, which is a story about one person who believes in astrology deeply and one person who doesn't believe in it at all.
Until it suits her to believe in it. and so that's, and I do, I like, I'm very open to things, and I think also 17 Magazine is probably where I used to read my horoscope, and also Newsday newspaper, Long Island. That was one of the things. I would check the Dear Abby column, the Yankee score, and my horoscope. And you do get sort of a sense of, it's like checking a fortune cookie. Fortune cookie is not as reliable as your horoscope. But you just feel like you want a little nod, a little something, to tell you where you're going on your way. Do you want to guess my horoscope, my sign?
Oh,
or do you want to keep
really
talking?
Hard, Robin, because I just met you.
We're just old friends already, Minnie Darke. Danielle. Well, we'll keep talking.
I'm just going to have the wildest guess. I'm just going to say you're a Cancerian.
No, I'm a Gemini. I'm like Minnie Darke.
Oh, like Minnie Darke. How lovely.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, but I don't know what's rising. I don't know. All I kept hearing was the Age of Aquarius in my head, and also the song from Aida, Written in the Stars. Like, as I'm reading this book, those are the two songs. And another thing to say is that you have great music in this book. I love the musical elements and the bands and all of that. And people can go to your website for this book. It's minniedarke, DARKE.com, and from there you can go to the Facebook page and to Instagram. But yes, so we start off and we see Justine as in her job, and so that sort of was very cinematic.
I'm glad. So one of the things that language freaks will enjoy about Justine is that she keeps a texter. I think you would say a felt tip pen in her handbag.
In her bag, cracking up for that.
And she corrects people's grammar mistakes. And if she's at a restaurant, she can't help herself but make notes in the menu if there are, errors in the menu. So she's a bit of a pedant in that way.
Somebody really needs to do it. Right? Oh, hilarious. Starts with the avocados, and then, she's changing the menu, and there was chalk at one point she fixes, so she's like prepared. Hilarious.
Yeah, she's a grammar warrior, and I feel that I've been an Australian cultural warrior in writing this book, because in preparing it for publication in the USA, a lot of queries came up about some of my Australian vernacular, including the use of the term budgie smugglers for men's bathers, men's swimsuits.
Oh, that's budgie smugglers. Everything made sense to me. Nothing, I got the context.
That's
if it wasn't
great.
a word I knew. Yeah,
obviously we did a good job.
You did a great job. It's charming and fast-paced, and I did read in one of the articles that you had access to, if you had wanted to change it, but that there was make a change in the paper. I mean, you always think about whose hand's on the button or who has access, and that there was a colleague, right, who did admit to making a switch in a horoscope to affect somebody's trajectory. And that thought, it's that sitting with that thought of like, what if I had the power to do this? I don't know if you read Camille Perry's The Assistants. It was out a few years ago. I was thinking about that. In that book, well, you could take a look at it. I don't want to confuse listeners, but there's somebody has access to something pretty powerful, and it's a similar kind of like, well, what if we just did this? And then where that's, then the ripple effect, because Justine finds herself with the ability to make certain changes. And interestingly, the gentleman who writes the column is not seen. He doesn't really communicate. He faxes in the horoscopes. So, talk about that a little bit.
Leo Thornbury is his name. So,
I was thinking about the boy Nick. But
Nick is her beloved. Yeah. So, when I was working as a journalist, the horoscopes were those very, very syndicated kind that you almost think perhaps a computer spat these out. So I didn't feel that I had any great responsibility to them because I didn't think they were lovingly crafted by an astrologer. Justine is in a slightly different position, which is that actually the astrologer who sends in his horoscopes to the magazine where she works actually is a really serious astrologer, but he's a recluse. So he is on an island off an island. He's never going to see the results of her meddling. That's why she feels that she can get away with it. So I've been interested to find out that this idea of meddling with horoscopes is, I found out so much more about it since writing the book. So I ran into an old boss of mine, and he wrote for a television magazine here in Australia in the 1970s, and he tweaked the horoscope for Aries in order to see if he could convince a young woman to fall in love with him. And he did, in fact, marry her in the end, which is lovely.
That's so lovely. Did he ever come clean? Does she know that he also...
Yes.
Oh, okay,
so
good.
apparently she liked that idea.
It's so romantic. Yeah.
A certain media baron of global significance, who is a Pisces and who reads his horoscopes, I have read that apparently some of his staff around the world will massage the horoscope for Pisces to keep him in a good mood.
Wait, what do they do?
They change the horoscope for Pisces to keep their boss in a good mood. So I have read. I cannot confirm this.
That's so funny. You know what? There's a lot riding on keeping a boss in a good mood, so at whatever means necessary. But the interesting thing is, because this sets off a chain reaction, and people, as we meet different characters in the story, and I'm speaking to Minnie Darke. We're talking about her brand new book, Star-Crossed. It's fabulous. This is one that you just do not want to miss. And visit her site at minniedarke.com and find her on Facebook and on Instagram. So we meet different characters, and every character description at the beginning of each chapter and how we meet people, just the tidbits of information about them is just so my kind of book, because there's like quirky little things that you just they're mentioned, and they just give you such a pointed visual, a visual and an insight to this character, where I'm like, yeah, I totally get what that person is like, and then the story is just so enriched by these details. I'm laughing as I'm talking.
I might just explain to your readers that the book's structured in 13 chapters that begin and end with Aquarius and move through all of the signs of the zodiac, and that's where you get the main story, which is the love story that holds the whole thing together. But then in the sections between those chapters, there are these parts called cusp, and that's where you find out what happens to all the people who are reading Justine's meddled horoscopes and making big decisions in their lives. So there are people like grumpy old Len Magellan, who's living in a nursing home. His children don't come and visit him as often as he thinks they should, and he's considering disinheriting the lot of them, but will he do it or not? Well, he'll read his horoscope and find out. And then so Zadie, the flight attendant who's inconveniently pregnant at the age of 23, is she going to keep her baby? Well, she's going to read her horoscope to help her make a decision. So these are big decisions that Justine is inadvertently affecting. So that's the structure of the book. And what this means is that there's quite a large cast. There are quite a lot of characters. And I had to come up with a way of describing those minor characters to you really fast.
Yeah, you do a great job. So you get who they are and why they're there. Yeah.
That's why we have those little vignettes right at the beginning, so that you do hopefully get that immediate picture of them.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to just spend a short time with them and then go back into the main story.
Right. It's like, now back to our main show. But on the other side, this doctor is reading this, or this person is meeting up at a bar, and what happened, and then back to our show. And also there's a sense of Justine sort of toying with Nick, somebody that they grew up together. The families had moved apart, and there was a blossoming romance, I guess you'd say, when they were 15, and then they hadn't seen each other. And he's so adorable, but he's chasing his dream of acting. And so how does that sort of all fall into the story of Nick and Justine?
Well, one of the things that any creative kid will know, and I'm sure this is true, the world over, you say to anybody, I want to be a writer, I want to be an actor, I want to be an artist. Some really well-meaning adult in your life is going to say, that doesn't earn much money, or, well, you should really get a real job. Or so Nick is one of those kids. He wants to be an actor. All the people around him are saying, hey, you're 27, you're really kind of going nowhere. It's time that you got a real job. Yeah. And he wants to hang on to his dream. So Justine, to her credit, is not only manipulating the horoscopes entirely in her own interests, she's also trying to say to him through the stars, don't give up yet. So I've been really interested by readers' reactions to Justine's decisions to manipulate Nick from off stage. And so some people read her as sort of really naughty or tremendously manipulative, and they say, why didn't she just go and talk to him? Why didn't she just ask him out? And
well, then it's not a book, is it, Minnie?
Well, it's a little bit like the meme on the internet about the Lord of the Rings. Why didn't they just get the eagles to take the ring to Mordor to start with?
But right.
In romance, one of the important things to remember is that we're so afraid of declaring our hand. We're so afraid of putting ourselves out there for rejection. And in romance, and this is a wonderful thing about it, is you don't necessarily need a villain. You don't need a bad person in romance. But you always need an antagonist in the story. But the antagonist is often in romance as simple as a force within us that makes us afraid of rejection or afraid of that we're not worthy of that person or whatever. So the reason she's doing this from backstage is just that simple. Just like so many of us, we're afraid to declare ourselves.
She's just stacking the deck. She's just making it a little bit more likely that the outcome will be the one she's still like very Jane Austen-esque or something. She's arranging people. I think it's very charming and all in the name of love. But what she's doing certainly has effects way past Nick. And talk about Henry a little bit. So she gets a bit of a raise or a promotion, sort of, and then this guy Henry comes in and takes her job. So there's.
Well, she's very worried that she will do so, and he's very sort of politically different to her and to most of the other staff. So
right.
I need to use slightly different language here because we actually use the word liberal, capital L liberal, for our conservative politicians here in Australia. So that's
really confusing.
So we had to change some things in the book so that made sense in your context. So Henry's quite the conservative, whereas most of the people Justine works with would be, in your language, quite liberal. So she doesn't really warm to him for that reason, but he's kind of snapping at her heels. So she needs to be careful in this workplace. She needs to not really do anything wrong. And so on the one hand, she has this desire to fiddle with the horoscopes to talk to Nick in sort of to ventriloquize what she wants to say to Nick. But on the other hand, she needs to be careful because she's got Henry snapping at her heels. Yeah. And then, of course, the situation gets complicated by the fact that she ends up with a new colleague called Daniel, and he's actually a bit of a dish.
Yes, he is.
So he complicates the situation again.
There's so much to this book, and that's the thing where it's such a page-turning joy to read. It's a book that I was thrilled when your publicist sent it, and my daughter started reading, and she said, "Oh, this is such a kind of book." And my daughter picks many of the books that I wind up interviewing on the show because she knows what I like, and it really cuts down on me, reading things that are not going to. So I'm like, I've sort of handed it over to her. She loved it. I'm like, oh, she's like, this is so your kind of book. And I'm speaking with Minnie Darke, and we are talking about this brand new novel called Star-Crossed. Great cover. Are your covers different? I mean, it's out in so many countries, but are they all different?
So far, the book has sold into 23 countries around the world.
Amazing. That is awesome.
And the screen rights have sold to a US production company, which is really exciting. I mean, obviously, it's screen, so you never count your chickens before they hatch, but they have,
they should hatch.
The screen rights have been sold. I'm really thrilled, actually, that the talk is for a limited edition TV series, because I think if you tried to make a feature film, it could be challenging to get the detail into it. So I'm excited by that prospect. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed.
We will, absolutely.
But as far as the covers around the world go, I'm just at the stage now where these books are arriving in my mailbox, or I'm seeing the new covers online, and the differences around the world are astonishing. So the Spanish cover is incredibly elegant, and it's called Predestinados in Spanish, and in Finnish the title translates as Written in the Stars, and in German it translates as Under a Good Star, and in French I think the translation is When the Stars Tangle, which is a really lovely.
I like that. I like how they're interpreted and how a cover is going to speak to, depending on where it's coming out. And there's so much detail that goes into that. And that's quite a lot of places that it's coming out. So it'll be interesting for you to hear. I mean, it's just coming out, but people will be talking about their horoscopes, or people that are really into that or don't believe in it, or explain what it means, though, that Minnie Darke's Gemini with Virgo rising. So, because every Gemini is not the same. So it depends on, the hour you're born, the minute. That's how the book begins.
Your rising sign, so your moon sign depends a little on the exactly where the moon was at the time of your birth, and whereas your rising sign, that could be changed by whether you were born in a 2-hour slot. So my rising sign would have to do with what time of day I was born, rather than which moon cycle I was born in. So that's an interesting thing to get to know. I should say, I had to learn a lot about astrology too.
I was wondering if you did a lot of research, because you seem like you could probably do on the side 1-800 call Minnie Darke, and just people can ask you questions. Why not? Because
the other thing is that I've really had to move on, because my next book is about music, and once again it has this plot that has the main plot, which is a love story, but then it has interleaved sections, this time about a song that affects different people around the world. So again, we've got a big cast. So I've had to move on from learning about astrology to learning about all sorts of interesting things about music,
which play a big role also in this book. So clearly music is something that you're drawn to, which is really neat to see that this new one is. I'm excited about the new one. Yeah, because my horoscope today, that's the thing that always kind of threw me. So everybody who's a Gemini, is reading this. So it can't certainly pertain to all of us, but I did get a good one today, and it said, others seem particularly cooperative today, dear Gemini. So this is, in fact, a very good day to do an interview. The appreciation of a friend may motivate you to go after what you want. Friendships and love relationships can strengthen or enliven. But I like the way, just in general, we can interpret things to mean, what they mean to us at one moment. Or if you read the same horoscope during a different part of the day, I wonder how it's interpreted.
One of the reasons that Justine doesn't feel particularly compromised doing what she's doing is that she thinks that the horoscopes are nonsense.
Right.
So,
right.
Some people feel very strongly that she keeps doing this dreadful thing. But you've got to remember that from her perspective, all she's doing is fiddling with something that's entirely arbitrary from the start. So while this book is a really, really light read, it's a joyful read, you should be able to read it on a plane or a beach or a holiday weekend or whatever, there are some deeper questions at play here. If there really is such a thing as destiny, and then Justine fiddles with the horoscopes to change people's destiny, then surely destiny is so powerful that was destiny's whole plan from the beginning.
Yes. I know. You really could look at it in different layers because, right, that would be a piece of it, that she was destined to fiddle with it. And there's definitely a lot of ways to look at it. These are the kinds of books that remind me why I love to read, because I was laughing. I was like, oh, what's going to happen with them? And, again, we never give spoilers away on Reading with Robin, so you will just have to get a copy of Star-Crossed and find out what happens. It's a love story, so you kind of we won't say. There are surprises along the way. It's a joy of a read.
There are plenty of surprises along the way, but I will say that you should get to the end, and whatever else happens, you should feel good when you get to the end.
Well, that's the thing to me. I always like to say it's a satisfying ending. It feels good. There are surprises, but it feels like this is how, this is written in the stars. There you go.
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing. I was just very thankful that it got passed my way, because it's not one that you want to miss. It's really fabulous, and it's called Star-Crossed and Minnie Darke. And thank you for sharing what's coming up next. Is it slated for next year, or are you on a 2-year path?
Look, I'm going to need to get it finished. There's that, and it's a busy life. I have. I do some teaching at a university here. I have 3 children, and I need to, obviously to get Star-Crossed on the road, but also to finish the next book.
Well, you've got a full plate there, and I'd like to know what you enjoy reading. What's on your summer reading list, or winter reading list, as it would be?
Look, I do. I absolutely love to read. I can never keep up with the amount of books that I would like to read. I read anything and everything. There's just probably 2 genres that I'm not really into, and that's crime thrillers or horror movies, because horror stories, I think I'm just a bit easily frightened. So I much prefer to stay, with. I don't like books full of dead bodies, really. I know some people do, and that's great, but I prefer to be with the living.
Yeah, I hear you. I like to stay on this side also of the realm. I don't like horror at all. I've been getting into thrillers a little bit. I've been surprising myself and really enjoying a few that I've read lately, and I've been sharing those on Reading with Robin. It's a departure for me, but so I've been surprised by that, but not gruesome horror. That is definitely not my thing, and it's and this is my thing, and it's Star-Crossed, and I am really thrilled to be able to get to speak to you from the other side there, and I hope our paths will cross for real in real life. All the success with this book, and we'll stay tuned for more information about the series and what you're working on. This was so much fun. We got it done.
Thank you so much, Robin. Thank you.